Hey everyone, welcome back to Workshop Quick Takes. Today we're going to come back to the liftgate where we haven't been in a while and try and solve a problem inside the latch assembly. Been having some issues with the little switch that's in there, not clicking the light on and off correctly, and in particular, it seems to want to stay on and it seems to want to keep the liftgate ajar light on up there. Now that's usually just due to an adjustment problem, so before you go taking this apart, let's look at a couple other things you should probably be checking on. Two of them are right here on either side of the liftgate, and that is these little adjustable stop assemblies which kind of turn on there. There's a screw stud and then the rubber part itself is just on there. You can rotate it left or right to tighten it or loosen it just like a normal screw. If those are not adjusted correctly, they can actually prevent the liftgate from fully closing. And the latch assembly up here, just like the ones on your doors, actually has two positions. There's an initial catch position and then there's the fully latch position. So what could be happening is maybe you're driving it around with this only in the first clicky spot. Another one which you may not have looked at yet, but you probably should, is this latch right here. Now these top two pieces are press fit, but you can actually see the bolts from underneath. If you look down right here, you might be able to get at them with a wrench, or you can go underneath the bumper. This here rarely needs adjusting, but if it does have a little bit of play like this, and that may be necessary in order to get a nice, tight, secure fit of your liftgate. But if you have decided that you really do need to take this apart and get at this latch assembly, it's actually not that hard. This panel here needs to come off. It is held along the top here by 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and unless you modified yours with a reverse camera on the inside like I've done here, this won't be part of what you're dealing with. Over here, you've got to remove this handle. This handle is held in by 2 T30 Torx screws. And of course, to get at those, you have to remove these little protective covers first, assuming you haven't lost them already, like I've lost one here. Finally, the rest is just held up in here with plastic push rivets, so it'll pop straight out, and then you've got access up into here. Once you're inside the liftgate and looking toward the base of the assembly, 3 main pieces of hardware will catch your eye. The first, toward the passenger side, is the electric lock actuator. If you ever need to service it, well, here it is. The second item is the release handle. Of note here is that the passenger side is held in solely by a retention hook, and a single bolt and nut secures the assembly on the driver's side. If this is loose and moving when you try to open the liftgate, check here and you'll probably find a loose nut. The third is the latch assembly with the indicator switch, and that's what we are here for today. This one's much tinier, it's just a T15. So, if you're only after the switch, it is accessible and can usually be swapped in place. The electrical connector is already removed at this point, but it just has a tab that lifts and then the connector pops out. Next, a T15 Torx bit is required. That's on the small side, so if anything looks rusted out down here or just puts up a fight, hit it with a generous application of penetrating oil and let it sit for a bit to avoid stripping out the screw head. Rotates up. Third, you're going to need one of these. This is Mopar part number 5600-5640, if you can find one. This here's the replacement switch. Okay, once it locks down, we should have contact. Easy way to check that is just to press on this a couple times. And there you go, unless you have problems with the screw. In which case, the next step is to remove the entire latch assembly, then make the repair on the bench. And if you're going that far, it makes sense to clean and lubricate the latch assembly. So let's look into that next. Okay, these are T40s. I can get into that there will be a fair amount of torque on these if they're installed correctly. Not excessive amount, but enough that you probably do want to use a ratchet. There is a third position down here, which we will remove last after disconnecting the other items inside. Once that's loose, that little mechanism just lifts out. assembly is now loose. And it seems to be worked out around. At this point, it should be obvious your door will not latch shut anymore, so you need to finish whatever you're doing and get this back installed again if you need to lock the vehicle. All right, back down on the workbench, we'll remove this again. Next step, if you choose to go this far, is to remove 2 rivets that are located here and replace them with some kind of loosely attached bolts. Off camera, we ground away the pressed heads of these rivets and replaced them with 1/4 inch carriage bolts. The carriage heads are shallow enough that they don't interfere with the latch installation, and nylon-collared lock nuts were used on the open side. These permit the tension on the assembly to be adjusted until it is neither too tight nor too sloppy to operate correctly. By replacing one at a time, we were able to avoid blowing apart the entire assembly, which does contain a powerful spring or two. But if you want to take it apart for a more thorough cleaning, do wear eye protection. There's a real possibility of injury here. This next modification is not for the faint of heart, and it will require you to seriously think about your life choices if this thing blows apart and you don't know how to put it back together. So I'll show you what I did, but your other option is to simply go find another one of these at the junkyard that has less wear. If you go down the path of drilling out these rivets and removing this, you'll discover that all the latch assembly is held inside this plastic block. Once you pull this plastic block off, there are some springs that can potentially go flying, so you need to decide if that's really what you want to do today. Alright, let's find out what this makes this so special. Those 2 pieces interlock there, and the top of this one is part of what is supposed to drive that switch. When it comes across here, it's supposed to press it in and trigger it off. This little wiper here is supposed to come up and hit it. If you pull these 2 pieces apart, notice how they lock here when the latch operates. And that's the actual closed position. That's the tripped but oops, we didn't finish opening it position. And that's the actual open position, is all the way down here. And I don't currently have the bolts pushed through it, so I won't tease that any further. But yeah, you pull these apart, there's a very powerful spring in here, and it takes some doing to work it back in. Right here is a good time to re-lubricate the assembly. An ideal substance is a chain lubricant, such as this WD-40 version we found in the sporting goods section of a local department store. But Tri-Slide products, or any other lubricant designed to leave behind a dry lubricating film, will also work. These are carriage bolts, and I did have to get the base piece here squared out a little bit in order to bind them, because otherwise they stick out just a little too far. Okay, a couple more adjustments made, and I think I got it where I want it. Let's just check that real quick. And if I remember correctly, the way this works is there's actually a voltage feed into the center pin, and so then you can tap either of the outside pins to see if it's connecting, because the idea is that one of them, I believe, feeds signal power through to the overhead interior lights, and then the other one feeds signal back to the liftgate ajar switch on the dashboard. So either one of these outside ones should make a pair. Now right now, because this is latched, I'm not expecting to get any continuity, and I am not, so let's just double check. Yeah. Okay, so if I got this working the way I want it to, I should be able to pull this. Hey, maybe it's finally working. Alright, time to put the latch back up in here. I'm going to start by reattaching this first because it's just a little bit easier. Okay. And working around there. We'll try and get this screw started but not tightened because it okay, so there it is. We have our switch plugged back in. We have our latch reconnected. That should be it. Okay, one thing you don't want to forget if you're testing a latch is to make sure it's back in the open position before you close the door. Kind of a bad day otherwise. That's another episode of Workshop Quick Takes. Thanks for being with us again today. Quick note, of course, this applies to the 97 to 01 Jeep Cherokee XJs. If you have a 96 or earlier, the latch is in the same place and there is a switch that does the same function, but it's older hardware with a different design. Hopefully that gives you some inspiration to go out there, get your vehicle from whatever condition it's in now, a little bit closer to the condition you'd like it to be. Thanks for joining us again today, and we'll see you again next time, whenever that is.
Has anyone seen my phone?